Hi guys, welcome back. This is our last video for chapter 4. It's video 5. We're going to be going over the lack of public goods as a means of creating market failure, as well as disparaged income inequality. Now, what's a public good? A public good is a non-competitive, non-excludable good. What does that mean? Everyone can access it, right? If you are new to a town, you can immediately register your kids in school. If somebody is visiting and they're from out of town, even out of the country, and God forbid there's a fire in their hotel, they can call 911. The fire department is not going to say, "So, did you pay taxes last year?" Right? Of course they're going to show up and help. This means whether you pay taxes, whether you don't pay taxes, with or without tax contribution, you have access to these goods. It does not mean that they are free. Taxpayers are funding them, and there's a fee that goes along. Like, for instance, we do know that Forest Park is considered a public good, right? But there is a fee to come in. It could be that there's a subway, but there's a fee to ride the subway. Now, it's a much smaller fee than had you been taking a taxi or going to a private park like Look Park. Notice its entrance fees are higher because it is a public good. It's subsidized. Now, why is it that lack of public goods cause market failure? The first thing, and this is our why now, is that private goods become more expensive. The demand, and this is from last chapter, remember, demand and supply. Higher demand makes prices higher, lower supply makes prices also higher. So when you have a greater demand for private goods, homes, buying houses, buying a private car. So for instance, if public transportation here, which is a public good, is no longer quite as available, then people have to rely on buying a car or purchasing a motorcycle, a bicycle. The demand for all those things goes up. So does the demand for insurance, does demand for maintenance, so does demand for gas. All those things become more expensive. There's always a snowball effect. So then now we're seeing that life doesn't have as much quality for a typical American. 2 is increases income and wealth inequality. The differentiation between the haves and the have-nots becomes greater, and you end up with very few who have, way more who don't have, and then even more people who have less than that. So the issue with lack of public goods is that you don't have enough schools, strong enough schools, you don't have enough access, and lack of access creates a workforce that is not as capable. Therefore, you end up with bigger gaps in income and wealth equality. Higher education becomes less and less attainable. People can't afford it as much and can't access it as much. Reduces quality labor. When you don't have enough higher education and training, you end up with workers who aren't able to perform the skills up to the standards that employers are looking for. And then, of course, you add to that the fact that we don't have as much training being provided by companies these days. You can see how an economy is going to suffer and all its little cracks become chasms. It reduces innovation. You don't have enough access to those goods and services, you don't have enough exposure, you don't have enough training, you don't have enough education. Of course, there's not going to be as much innovation. And that reduces the overall quality of life. So lack of public goods goes hand in hand with more poverty, more damage to the future of an economy. More public goods, on the other hand, do the opposite, right? They stitch those seams. They bring people closer together. They provide a greater, stronger safety net. It's more nourishing to an economy, and this emaciates an economy. Now, our last market failure causation is disparaged income inequality. I left you so much information in your outline, many statistics, tables, graphs, all kinds of beautiful things. Please look at them. And they really are beautiful because they're eye-openers. And nothing is as lovely as being able to see things as they are, so then we can actually fix them. Income inequality has noticeably grown in this country since the 70s. So if we were to look a little bit at this one, you see that in 1978, the top 1% owned 7% of the wealth. You fast forward until the 2000s, and now you're looking at the 1%, top 1%, owning as much as 23% of the wealth. That's more than 3 times what it used to be in just a matter of a few decades. Why is that? Here are the reasons why. Now, there are always more reasons than we go over, but these are some glaring reasons that we have to talk about. Income stopped rising faster than inflation. This is real income. We're going to spend a couple of chapters really looking at that in detail. Real income means the raise that you're getting as a percentage is smaller than the inflation rate. And so it eats away at the value of your money. So you might actually have more money from year to year, but that money has less value. Therefore, you feel poorer, and you are not wrong. You are poorer. Minimum wage stopped catching up to living wages. So it used to be that minimum wage increased at the rate of inflation for a while, but then that completely stopped. Minimum wage remained very, very low. Now, what's a living wage? A living wage doesn't mean you live in a palace and you eat steak and you go hang out at the park, the amusement park every weekend. Living wage means you have enough food, reasonable amount of food, good food, you have a roof over your head, you have access to go to school and to work, and you have some sort of basic medical care that you also can have. And what's happening now is, unless you're making more like $30 an hour, you probably really don't feel that if you have dependents especially, and especially in New England, you don't feel that you can pay for a house, the food, the transportation, and everything that goes with it, the basic, maintenance of your life plus healthcare. The odds are people need some sort of subsidies. For instance, I'll tell you a story where there was a Walmart, and I believe it was in May. Now, Walmart has come a long way, but there are cases like this where it was asking for its customers to donate for the Thanksgiving meals for its employees. Now, Walmart is a huge private employer. It's massive after the federal government is how big of an employer it is. Well, we have to ask, how low are these wages that the employees are receiving, that the store is concerned their employees don't have a Thanksgiving meal? And can't Walmart give them that? And why are so many employers underpaying their employees to such a degree that those employees with jobs have to apply for taxpayers to help them with their rent, with their food, with their transportation, with their healthcare, etc.? So not giving people a living wage is clearly going to keep people very poor. Capital gains taxes dropped. Capital gains, if you're not familiar with this. So there are taxes on assets, on the income from an asset, and then there are taxes on the income from labor. So when you and I go to work and we get a paycheck and it's a lot smaller than we thought we were going to be, and we think, hey, where did my money go? That is an income tax. Now, when we file in April for our taxes, this is again an income tax. Capital gains taxes are more like you own property and you rent it out, and that income is from an asset, then that's considered a type of capital gains if it's stocks. So we have all these CEOs that used to get paid mostly in regular income. So they paid that 30%, around 30% or so on their income in taxes. But when CEOs are allowed to get $1 million in regular income and some $100 million in stock options, then those stock options, for one thing, the $100 million is likely to grow. And when they withdraw it, they're withdrawing it as a type of capital gains income. So they're withdrawing it as an asset income. They're paying capital gains, which is way, way lower than the labor income. So those who actually are bypassing the income tax rules are gratified, and they're finding that there's a way to make more money and pay less taxes. Income taxes dropped more for higher earners. The other point here is, when the government has given tax breaks, they really have given them more to those of higher income instead of those of lower income. There's a saying that says it's expensive to be poor. Honestly, it really is. Whoever wrote that is brilliant. It is truly the case. Companies reduced their investments in training their workers. It used to be that a company would hire you young, foster you, train you, keep you for as long as they could, and help you grow in your positions by providing you ongoing training and education. And today, companies want us to come in having lots of skills that we paid for on our own, out of our own pockets. And then they expect that maybe 3-4 years from now, you're going to go elsewhere. So there really isn't this, you're going to be with us for many years and we're going to look after and we're going to train you. And that has produced more expensive training for individuals. And then at the end of the day, they are less trained and consequently less able to get the jobs that pay better. CEOs started, this one actually. Companies started paying CEOs and top management with stock so they avoid labor income. Okay, this is the point I was making before, but also giving the money to the stockholders instead of to the employees. So it used to be, again, where the employees were factored in more. The company took more of its profits and put it back into innovation, more into kind of growing their employees and taking care of them and maybe sharing with them some of the profits. And it became, let's give it to the stockholders and let's do everything we can to show that this company is profitable, which created the situation of, fired first, hired last. We want to let go of people very quickly. We want to return them very slowly. We want to overburden the employees who are already working for the company by giving them too much, not necessarily too much work and responsibility, and not necessarily compensating them for all of that. You have here innovation and raises slowed as more resources were funneled in the pockets of top management and investors. Yeah, because the company stopped reinvesting like they used to in as much innovation. As a country, we used to innovate more than we do today. This is really something we have to kind of pivot back towards. And the last one is unconscientious capitalism grew rapidly at the expense of a conscientious one. In other words, there really was a time when we thought we should get rich. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with being rich, but to somehow share a little bit more, care a little bit more at the small, for the small guy, care a little bit more for the community. Something has happened to the extreme avarice that has taken hold of people. And we need to kind of back away from that a little bit. And this is obviously an opinion, but it does seem that where capitalism is mixed with a lot of money being poured and injected into public goods, the well-being of society is stronger. And again, I always encourage you to look at things yourself, to dig in, to do some research, to think for yourself. You're not here to take what I tell you at face value, but I am telling you how I see things to be. I am relying on facts, but also what I think, and this is where it becomes subjective, what I think makes a society healthy. And a society is healthier when we really do think of everyone and not just the very few who can swim on their own. So I'll tell you a joke and then I'll let you go. So that kind of illustrates this point. So the joke goes like this. There was an Alitalia flight and the captain gets on the loudspeakers and he says, ladies and gentlemen, those of you on the plane is kind of in trouble. We have an engine that failed. And then he tells people to, please scramble. And those of you who can swim, sit on the right. And those of you who cannot swim, sit on the left, because we might have to make an emergency landing. And then the other engine kind of blows up and the captain says, guys, we are going to be diving into the ocean, so prepare yourselves. And then the plane nosedives. And then everybody hears the captain one last time saying, okay, those of you on the right, please begin swimming. Those of you on the left, thank you for flying Alitalia. And so this is the problem when capitalism doesn't have much of a conscience, is that we really don't care about everybody who can't swim. And what I would rather see happen is that we teach everyone to swim. Okay, you guys have a great one. I'll see you next chapter.